Good evening, everyone. We started going through the Yud Gimel Ikrim that the Rambam wrote, and tonight's topic, one of the Ikrim, is that we believe in Schar ve'Oinish, that whatever we do makes a difference and is recorded, and therefore, according to how we behave, there is such a thing as reward, and chas v'shalom the opposite, that there is punishment. There's a lot to talk about this, and we'll see how much time we have. Maybe I'll go back to that point of the first this principle. But what we want to first talk about tonight is a question that is asked by many Chokhrei Yisrael, and it's also brought down in the Klei Yakar in Pashas B'chukoisai, and he brings at least 11 or 12 different answers to a very good question. Why is it that in the entire Torah, which is the holiest sefer we have, and when it talks about reward and punishment, it speaks only about physical rewards and physical punishments? You would think everybody understands that the physical world is a limited world. The Gashmistic world is just a temporary world. So where then should it say, if not in the Torah, that the main thing is that if you will do what's right, you will be rewarded in afterlife, which is eternal? And there is no mention of spiritual rewards or spiritual punishments. And the problem is, by mentioning only physical rewards and not mentioning anything about spiritual rewards, could give the impression that that's all that matters. So this is a very strong question, and many Mefarshim ask this question. I'll just bring out a few, and then we'll see many radical approaches to this. One of the simple answers to this question is Mefarshim say that being that the Torah was given to everyone, not everyone would appreciate spiritual rewards. They want to know right now on this world. So being that the Torah was given to everyone, we have to find a common denominator that everybody could relate to. So the Torah only talks about physical rewards and physical punishments. One of the problems with this question, with this answer rather, is that the same way that the Torah is given to everyone, also to simple people, on the same hand, the Torah is also given to great tzaddikim. So how is that going to satisfy the righteous people, telling them that they're going to have fat cows, that they're going to have good wheat, good crop? The tzaddikim and the righteous people, this is not talking to them. So the same way that you have to find something for everyone, then talking only about the physical and not about the spiritual is not talking at all to the righteous people. Anyway, there are many very interesting answers, and I'll just mention a few. The Rambam has a very interesting answer. The Rambam says that the Torah is not at all talking about any rewards or any punishments. What the Torah talks about in Pashas B'chukoisai and in Pashas Kisavo, this is not to be meant as rewards. But Hashem is saying that if you will do what Hashem wants you to do, you won't have any problems. You will be able to do what Hashem wants. In other words, this is not to be meant as rewards. It's just eliminating obstacles. If you will follow in the way of Hashem, you'll have what you need so you could serve Hashem. If chas v'sholem, you don't listen to Hashem, you'll have other problems. But rewards are not at all mentioned in the Torah. This is how the Rambam approaches this question. And according to that, Hashem does not warn us to do things for rewards, or to be afraid not to listen to Him because of punishments. We should do it because Hashem wants us to do it, not thinking about rewards. As the Mishnah says in Pekah Avot, that we should serve God not for rewards. So the Torah doesn't talk about rewards. It does talk about it. That's not rewards. That's only helping you that you won't have problems. You're able to concentrate on what Hashem wants you to do. It's a very interesting approach. To make a long story short, there is a very interesting answer given by the holy Shalah. The Shalah was a Makubal, very holy man, and he wrote a sefer called Shnei Luchai Sabris, and to abbreviate it, it's Shalah. And the Shalah has a very unbelievable answer. What was the question? How come the Torah does not talk about spiritual rewards? Says the Shalah, the whole Torah is all about spiritual rewards. We are just reading the Torah on a very low level. And the Shalah uses this quote: HaTorah midaberes bo elyonim umeramezes betachtonim. This means the Torah is addressing all about God. When we read the Torah in the simple form, this is the lowest level of the Torah. When, for instance, we are reading in the Torah, there are, let's say, stories in the Torah. Adam, Chava, Avram, Sarah. The truth of the matter is that the Torah on its original state existed before there was a world, before there was anyone, and the Torah always existed. So if the Torah existed beyond time, so what does it mean, Adam, Chava? There was no Adam, there's no Chava, there was nothing. Now, obviously, the Torah, the way it was written in its original form, Adam means also a spiritual entity. Chava, these are all spiritual concepts. Later, it happened to be that it's also in the physical. But that's just the lowest part of the Torah. But the Torah, this is what the Shalah says. HaTorah midaberes bo elyonim. The Torah is talking all about godly matters. We, on earth, reading the Torah on its lowest form. But the Torah, and it's very, very beautiful, because I think there's a medrash, that what the medrash says, Kol HaTorah Shmosav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is a mind-boggling concept. Every word in the Torah is a name of Hashem. What does that mean? Where do you see Hashem's name? Moshe is a name, Nachash is a name. The answer is yes. We just don't see it. But every word in the Torah is really a name of God. So we see even the Medrash hinting to us that the Torah on its original level, it's all about spiritual things. So there's no question how come the Torah doesn't talk about afterlife. The whole Torah is talking about spiritual things. We are just reading it on this level. Yeah.
That's the reason why the Torah has no Nekudas.
That's another thing.
Because
not only doesn't it have
we read it in one way,
not only that.
No Nekudas on it, they can have a Torah.
Okay, and you don't even have to go to the Nekudas. How do we know when a word stops and when it's a next word, when it's a sentence? And this is only in Torah Sheba'al Peh revealed to us this way of Torah learning, that this is the end of this sentence. Imagine if we would have other ways to read the Torah, the whole meaning would change. So the Torah has many, many, many different levels. So it's almost the same idea that we are just learning the Torah on a very physical level. I just have to clarify that whatever it says in the Torah means exactly what it says. There's no such a thing as that's not the real meaning. Chas v'shalom to say that. We have a klal, ein mikra yotzei midei pshuto. Everything it says in the Torah is 100% authentic the way it's translated. The Pirush HaPashut is 100% true. Not only is it true, if we would chas v'shalom say about any word in the Torah that it doesn't mean exactly what it says, out goes the whole religion. Because every mitzvah in the Torah is based because this is what it says in the Torah. If you could say, well, it says this, but it could mean something else, then there won't be no religion. Hashem purposely told us that everything it says means exactly what it says. But that is, in the world of this world, that's what the Torah says. But if you take the Torah on a higher level, it's a different reality, so it's about different things, spiritual matters. But the way the Torah was given in Olam Hazeh, we need to learn the Torah exactly what it says, and that's how we know exactly what to do. If we could say Shabbos is not the seventh day, it could mean the 7,000th year, who knows what, there won't be no religion. The Eibishter said, I want you to know whatever I said means exactly what it says. The seventh day means day, and not 1,000, and not this, all the possibilities that people want to put into the Torah. We have a rule, ein mikra yotzei midei pshuto. But it doesn't change the fact that on a higher level, and where the Torah originally comes from, there it's all about spiritual matters. This is what the Shalah answers. So it's very different than all the different answers. If you have a chance to open the Klayaka in Pashas Behul Kaisai, he brings, I think, at least 11 different approaches. None of them is so radical as the Shalah. Because the Shalah say it's there, just you don't know how to read it. Now, let's try a few more different approaches. I said before that some commentaries want to say that the reason that the Eibishter wrote only physical rewards is because it should be for everyone. Then there is the question, why do you write rewards altogether? You're not supposed to be doing mitzvahs for rewards or to stay away from punishments. There is another whole approach of what is the meaning of physical rewards. The truth of the matter is, I think we spoke about this a few weeks ago, the physical world and the spiritual world are not two different places, two different locations. The spiritual is like the soul of the body, just like a body and a soul. The soul is not in one place, the body is in another, and they send texts to each other. It's the soul of the body. So therefore, whatever happens with a person's soul, automatically the body reacts. And I think I gave you this example. When a person is in a good mood, let's say you're in a good mood, something happened, you heard good news, but the good mood is in your heart or in your feelings, it's nothing to do with your body, right? It's your soul that feels good. But you know what? If you feel good in your soul, you could tell it on a person's face. You could see, is he happy, is he sad, is he depressed? What's the why? Because the body and the soul are in such harmony that the body reacts how the soul feels, how you feel. So really, ideally, if a person is connected to Hashem, the physical world reacts how things are spiritually you're connected, then physically you'll have everything good. It's not a separate thing. You do what Hashem says, I'll pay you. It's automatic. Ideally, it's supposed to be that way. If you're connected to God, the soul is good, then the body is going to react too. In the body, the physical world will be good for you. Now, how come it's not like this now? We don't see this always. Sometimes we don't see how it translates in the problem is, we in our own lives, our soul and our body, spirituality in the physical world, we live in two worlds. But if we would only be really the way we should, then it's not a reward. It's cause and effect. If we are connected to Hashem, of course the physical world, you're going to have everything you need. Because the physical world is a manifestation of the soul. And if you're connected, it's going to happen good for you. So now, if you could understand this, when the Torah says that if you will listen to Hashem, it'll be good, it's telling you really the greatness of spirituality. That spirituality is so powerful that automatically the physical is going to happen that way. So what was the shaila? The question was, how come the Torah does not talk about spiritual? The fact that the physical world is going to react. Give an example. You open up the Chumash. Think for a moment. It says, "In bechukaisai teilechu," if you will listen to God, your rain will come at time, your cattle, you'll have fat cattle. Now, let me ask you, what does fat cattle have to do? If a Yid is a frum person, his cattle are going to be fat. What's the connection? We don't even realize, stop to think. How is the cattle going to react? Because I'm listening to God, the cattle will be fat, or it's going to come out good fruit. What's the connection? The answer is, that tells you what spirituality is. Because you are so connected spiritually, it's going to have an effect on the physical automatically. So the whole kasha is no kasha. How come it doesn't? That's the best proof that spirituality is working and kicking, that it's affecting all the way to the physical. And that is why when the Rambam talks about what is going to be when Mashiach will come, and the Gemara talks so much about it, that ready fruit will come from the trees. We won't even have to. Bread will grow on the trees. What is this prediction? What's so special about that the bread will come out of the tree and everything will grow, everything will be ready made? That's an indication that you're so spiritually connected that it's going to have automatically effect on the physical. It's like, it's all about the spiritual. It's telling you the greatness of the spiritual, that it has an impact all the way to the physical. So that answers this shaila. It is talking all about spiritual. That is the indication that it's so powerful that it affects the physical too. That is one answer that is brought in Hasidus. Then there is another answer which is really amazing. The final answer that Hasidus gives on the question why doesn't it mention anything about spiritual rewards? And this is a radical answer, because physical rewards are really greater than spiritual rewards. How do you figure that out? So let me try to throw this out. This idea. In Hasidus, this is a very important klal. I'll say it first in Hebrew and then I'll say it in English. Kol hagavoa beyoser yored lemata yoser. The greater something is, the higher something is, the further it will fall or the further it will reach. Let's take a rock that falls off a wall from the middle of the wall. The rock won't fall too far from the wall. But if the rock falls from all the way on top of the wall, it's going to fall much further. The higher or greater something is, the further it could reach. Now let me give you a few examples. There is a klal in the Gemara. Sichas Talmidei Chachamim, even the simple words of Talmidei Chachamim, tzrichem limud. You should learn, because a Talmid Chacham, if he's very wise, even in his simple talk, there is Torah and there's what to learn from. The greater you are, then even in your simple words, there's a lot to learn from. Well, let me give another example. The greater the light, the further it will reach. So this cloud, the higher you are, the lower and further you could reach, is a very important cloud. Let me just give you one more example. The Torah tells us that Shlomo HaMelech, as we know, was the wisest man that ever lived. And it says that in Kehelis that Shlomo HaMelech was able to give 3,000 mashalim. Doesn't say what that means, and I'll soon explain. That he was so wise that he could give 3,000 mashalim. Mashalim are examples. So what's the greatness of that? So Hasidus says the following. Shlomo HaMelech was greater in his intellect. He was 3,000 levels above the average person. And yet, Shlomo HaMelech was able to bring his wisdom all the way down to a level of 3,000 levels lower than him. So the Mishalim that Shlomo Melech gave is not Mishalim all on one level. Every level he brought it down lower, and a lower mashal, and a lower mashal. So it means he was so great that if he wouldn't give 3,000 Mishalim, one lower than the other, then the average guy wouldn't understand what Shlomo Melech was doing, what he said. So the greatness of Shlomo Melech is that he could even relate and find words to relate his wisdom to somebody who's 3,000 levels lower. And let me give you a practical example. You have two teachers, and one teacher is brilliant. But you know, he's so brilliant, I don't understand a word he says. So you would think, oh, they must be so great. That's why I don't know. No. The truth is that doesn't mean that at all. You could have somebody who is even more brilliant, but he has a way that he could understand how to relate to somebody who is much lower than him. So the fact that you do understand what he's saying might be just the opposite. Maybe he is greater, because he could find words how you could understand too. So we have an interesting cloud that greatness is not measured. Oh, I can't understand the word he's saying. He must be so brilliant. Just the opposite. If he's really great, then he could find words how I could understand too. Now, let's take this physical world. On one hand, this physical world is considered the lowest world of all spiritual worlds, because this world is very limited to time, to space, has all the limitations you could imagine. So it's the lowest world, very limited. But then there's another way to look at that. If God, who is beyond time and beyond space and beyond anything, and he could lower himself to create a world that is so low, that tells me even more about God. That God can relate and reach so far. So according to this explanation, this world has more of the godless of Hashem than a spiritual world. Because for God to relate to spiritual worlds, that's no big godless. That he could create something so low. That means, there is something about, this world is telling me more about Hashem than the spiritual worlds. And this is a very important cloud, and I don't know how much time we have to talk about this, but let's try to concentrate on this point, that the greater you are, the lower you could reach, so therefore the something that is low has in itself an expression of real greatness. At the same time that it's low, it's also telling me about the real greatness. If you understand that, then the physical world has, in a certain sense, more greatness than the spiritual world. And that is why when Mashiach is going to come, and it's going to be the time of Tchias HaMeisim, we follow the opinion of the Ramban that the neshamas are going to stay forever in a body. There won't be, after resurrection of the dead, there's no greater place to go. This is going to be in a body. The soul is going to be stuck in a physical body forever. Yes. Because the body has in itself greatness that even the soul doesn't have. Because the body brings out the real greatness of Hashem. Now we could understand why the Torah says you're going to have physical rewards. In the physical rewards is there more than the spiritual rewards. You're asking why doesn't God tell us about... He's telling you more. That you're getting spiritual rewards, that's for sure. You don't have to be a rocket scientist for that. The chiddush is that he's going to give us physical rewards. And physical rewards have in itself more than the spiritual rewards. This is a very... So what's the difference? In Kabbalah, which the Shalah was a Makubal, the way Kabbalah looks at this world, everything is really what goes on upstairs. So the Torah is talking all about spirituality, and you're just reading the physical, but it's really where it's at is the spiritual. That's how Kabbalah looks at this world. This world is secondary compared to what goes on up there. Hasidus takes the whole thing upside down. No, the physical is greater than the spiritual. So Hashem is telling us the greatest reward. He's not holding back the spiritual. He doesn't even have to talk about that. That's Pashut. What the Torah does have to mention is he's going to give us something more. He's going to give us the physical rewards, and in the physical lies the highest and greatest powers. Follow? I thought this would be a very interesting topic. The question was, how come we don't see spiritual rewards in the Torah? And you see very different answers, especially the way it's answered in Kabbalah and the way it's answered in Hasidus. In general, one of the differences between Kabbalah and Hasidus is Kabbalah talks mainly what goes on in the spiritual rewards, in the spiritual worlds. Hasidus talks what's going on in this world. That this world is no small potato. God chose from all the worlds, he chose where does he want to dwell. Where is his favorite place? Where is his condominium? Down here in this world. And therefore, in that sense, the physical rewards are much greater than the spiritual rewards. So that was one topic that it says on the brochure that I'm going to be talking about.
Where does Hasidus get this concept?
Where do they get it?
Yeah, I thought they get it from Kabbalah. Don't they get it from the
Hasidus, in a sense, now is not the time to talk about this, but really Hasidus is called the essence of the Torah. The Torah has Pshat, Remez, Drush, and so, Pardes. But all of these halakim in Torah is still not the essence of the Torah. The essence of the Torah does not have a particular form. Pshat has its form, Drush has this form, Sod has this form. The essence of the Torah has no form, and therefore it adds to Sod. It's not Sod, it's higher than Sod. It could help you understand Sod, it could help you understand Pshat, but Hasidus is considered the Torah of Mashiach. When Mashiach will come, one of his main functions is that he's going to be a teacher. Just like Moshe was called Moshe Rabbeinu, Mashiach is going to be a teacher. And it says in the Psukim that Mashiach is going to teach Klal Yisrael, including teaching Moshe Rabbeinu, teaching all the generations. He's going to teach something that they did not hear till Mashiach. What is Mashiach going to teach? That all these Tzaddikim, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the answer is Mashiach is going to reveal the essence of the Torah. the essence of the Torah was never fully revealed. They only learned Pshat, Remes, Drush, Soit, but this is all offshoots of the essence of the Torah. And the essence of the Torah is what Mashiach is going to teach. 1 second. So therefore, nowadays, as we all probably know, that the Baal Shem Tov revealed that he went to the chambers of Mashiach, and he asked Mashiach, when are you going to come? Like, it's taken forever. When are you going to come? And Mashiach replied, when your wells of Hasidus will spread throughout the world, that's when I'm going to come. Now, what's the connection? When is he going to come? When they're going to teach? When Hasidus will be taught all over? What's the connection with Mashiach? The answer is that's the whole Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be teaching this kind of Torah. And we need to prepare and get ready for his teachings. So Hasidus is not like many people think it's based on mysticism or it is mysticism. Hasidus does not have a particular form. It is the essence of every part of the Torah.
What's the Masorah? How do you trace the Masorah?
Now, the Masorah comes from the same place as every part of the Torah. If it wasn't given at Sinai, it's not Torah. So everything has to be traced back to Hashem teaching Moshe Rabbeinu, gave him a crash course, took 40 days and 40 nights, and he taught him everything. But Moshe did not reveal every part of the Torah for everyone. There were parts of the Torah that had to be kept sewed. So this is something very common, that Moshe Rabbeinu did not, even the mitzvahs, Moshe Rabbeinu did not teach all the mitzvahs at once. If you look in the history in the Torah, in the Midbar, there were times he taught these mitzvahs, then he taught these mitzvahs. There was periods when the time was right to reveal more. The same way, Sodas HaTorah was also not taught for everyone till a certain period, when the Arizal finally said that now is the time to reveal the Kabbalah, mitzvah legalo zos hachachma. So we find that the Eibishter made that there is a system, there's an order, although everything was given at the same time. But when this should be taught to Klal Yisrael, when the time was ripe for when the Jews should know that, then it was taught to Klal Yisrael. But if it wasn't given by Hashem at Sinai, it's not Torah. Torah means it's God-given. And if it wasn't given, then it's not Torah. So everything has to be in the Torah and was given to Moshe. Okay, the next part of this discussion was also about this concept of reincarnation. Some people may not be aware that this is something that Jews believe in, and this is a part of Kabbalah. And there's the Arizal had a Talmud, Rabbi Chaim Vital. The Arizal never wrote anything. It was always recorded by his very special Talmud, Rabbi Chaim Vital. And Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote one of his svarim of the teachings of the Arizal is called Sefer HaGilgulim, that there is such a concept as reincarnation, and he goes into a lot of different kinds of reincarnation. And I'll try to explain what this means. Not always does it mean the same thing. By the way, for many generations, this concept of reincarnation was not known. It is old is the Torah. Like I said, everything that Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote that comes from the Arizal doesn't come from the Arizal. It comes from God at Sinai. The Arizal revealed it, but he didn't make it up. This is not somebody who took out of his hat. You're talking about one of the greatest tzaddikim, and he revealed the secrets of the Torah. So it's not a question, or it's not a surprise that it was not known for many, many generations. The idea of Gilgulim, you don't even find hardly anybody talking about it. The only commentary that we have, who was a commentary in Nigla the Torah, is the Ramban, Nachmanides, when he talks about the mitzvah of Yibum. Does everybody know what the story of a Yibum is? There's a mitzvah in the Torah that if somebody was married and have children, so the next brother, and he dies, then his wife, if he had left a brother, the brother has to, in the beginning, he has to try to marry her. And the Torah says that if he dies and he didn't have children, and the brother marries the same woman, so he will able to give a name after the... So if you read the Torah on a simple level, it's okay, give him a name. Because you'll give him a name, that's a reason to marry. Usually you're not allowed to marry a sister-in-law. Here the Torah says you can. Oh, you're able to give him a name. So the Ramban, you ready for this? So the Ramban on the spot says, when you're going to give him a name, then the person who you're naming after comes back down with, and it's like bringing him down again. So he is the first one in Nigla the Torah who revealed this concept of reincarnation. That when you're going to give the child a name after the father who passed away, you're enabling the soul to come down once again. In the kid. So it's just important to note that that's really the first. Now, the Holy Zohar does not even talk about Gilgulim. It's first the Arizal who talks about this in great length, and I want to throw out a few very interesting points. One of the most common idea of Gilgulim, of reincarnation, is being that every soul, every Yiddish soul that is here on this world was given a mission to fulfill 613 commandments. Now, not always, and I'll soon say never, do we manage to fulfill all of the mitzvahs. For instance, on best of cases, not everybody's a Kohen. Not everybody's a Levi. There are certain mitzvahs in the Torah that only a Kohen could do. If every Jew is supposed to fulfill every mitzvah, how in the world is he going to fulfill if he's a Yisrael? So the Arizal says clear, if you are here a Yisrael, either you are here before once a Kohen and you are once a Levi, or you're going to be a Kohen, you're going to be a Levi. In other words, every soul needs to fulfill every mitzvah. And the only way is not in one lifetime. The only mitzvah that one person does for everyone is the mitzvah of being a king. Minui melech. There's no such a thing as every Jew has to be a melech. On the other hand, somebody has to be a melech. So the Arizal says that mitzvah, the melech is motzi klal Yisrael. But any other mitzvah, if every Jew has to fulfill all the mitzvahs, now, that's Kohen Levi. Now, there's also, let's say we're all now in Golus. Now, we hope Mashiach will come any day. But let's say the soul's last generation who did not witness Mashiach, there's so many mitzvahs we have to bring kabbanis. Most of the mitzvahs I say we can't even do now in Zman HaGolus. We only have 86 or 87 mitzvahs that we could do now. Most of them only pertains in Eretz Yisrael with a Beis HaMikdash. So how are we going to fulfill those mitzvahs? How did they fulfill the mitzvahs? The only answer is because there's reincarnation. They must have either be once in Eretz Yisrael, Bisman Beis HaMikdash Hayakayim. But one thing the Arizal does say, that once Mashiach comes, there's no more reincarnation. So if we believe and hope that any minute Mashiach will come, we can't say, okay, maybe not now, I'll go there's no more next time. This is the last stop. The last chance is now. Because once Mashiach comes, no more reincarnation. Okay, so there's one very strong point, that the need for reincarnation is to fulfill the mitzvahs that you missed last time around. Being that Hashem needs that every Jew should fulfill every mitzvah, and God's going to get his way. There's no way we're going to get out of what, if he wants that that's what we should do, he's going to get it. The question is not if, the question is when. So reincarnation is mandatory to enable every Jew to fulfill all his mitzvahs. Now, that is reincarnation in order to fulfill the mitzvahs. Then there is another whole different kind of reincarnation, and that is just like there is such a thing as Gehinnom, which is a cleansing for the soul, that sometimes when we do things on this world, we accumulate certain stains, let's say, to our soul. So our soul needs a dry cleaner to get the stain out. The same way that there is such a thing as Gehinnom, which is a dry cleaner to remove the stain, sometimes a soul comes down in this world to experience some pain or discomfort, especially if a soul comes down not in the human body, but could come down in an animal, could come down in a tree, in a whatever. So it's very uncomfortable for the soul to be connected to something other than a body. It's like a big gullus. So that kind of reincarnation is another cleansing form. So it's not to make up for mitzvahs, it's to experience certain discomforts, which is also a cleansing for the soul. Which incidentally, this is really an eye-opener. If God forbid, heaven forbid, it should never happen. Sometimes you see that an infant passes away, what they call it, crib death or some other thing, and you wonder, how could it be? The child never did anything wrong. How could this happen? One of the possibilities is that this soul was here before, and somehow the soul needed some other experience of discomfort, and this is a toiver. It's a favor for the soul to experience temporarily discomfort, to come down in a body and then leave this world, but it's for the benefit, for the long run, for the soul to have this cleansing, to be together with its maker forever. So in general, this is a very interesting concept, that there's all kinds of reincarnations. There's reincarnation mainly to fulfill the mitzvahs, and there's a reincarnation sometimes to go through a cleansing. And usually it's when it's reincarnated outside of a human body. Now I'd like to say some more interesting things about reincarnation. If we are here on this world, to fulfill all of the mitzvahs. And everybody that's here, and please don't, I'm not picking on anybody, 99% of the souls that are here today were here before. It's very, very rare that a soul is here for the first time. Most of us, this I'm not saying my own, this is what it says in the Arizal, most of the souls that are here were here before many, many times maybe. So how in the world are we to know which mitzvah did I miss last time, or 2 times ago, or 3 times ago, so I could finally know what to do and make up for it? God doesn't leave us totally in the dark. How are we to know? We don't even know that we were here before. And we don't even have any recollection that we were here before. I know that there are some people that think that they do know, and maybe they need to see a doctor, but we really don't know. So how in the world are we supposed to know which mitzvah are we to do to make up for the time that we did not do that mitzvah? So the Arizal gives us a very interesting clue. I hope you'll enjoy it. And he says, the mitzvah that you find most difficult observing. We all, we're all human, and everyone has like, this is just not for me. I can't see me doing that. What do you think? Why do you have a hang-up? Dafke this mitzvah tomorrow, or no. So the Arizal says, because your Yetzer Hara, he knows that this is what you came down for. And he's going to lose. It's as if you get this mitzvah, he's out of business. So he makes it that mitzvah drives you up the tree. I can't do it. I can't see myself do it. So the Arizal says, the mitzvah that you find most difficult observing, that is that mitzvah that you missed out last time, and please do it. So it's very, very interesting. The same goes with Torah. Listen to this. We say every day in davening, in the end of Shmoneh Esrei, we say, Yehi Ratzon U'Fanecha, She'yibana Beis HaMikdash, B'mher Yameinu. What's the next word? V'sei Chalkeinu. What does this mean? Chalkeinu. What do we have? Stock? Everyone has stock. What does it mean saying Chalkeinu? So it says in many, many Sfarim that every Yid has a certain chelik in Torah that his neshama needs to learn. Especially, like that's his connection. He has a certain, just like it says that there are so many osius in the Torah, and every Yid is one os. Everyone has their os, and every Yid has a certain part in the Torah that's his link to God. So how do you know which chelik? This is a very good way. Which part of the Torah you find most difficult learning? Same logic. Some people say, this is too much. I just don't get it. Some people, I don't know, I can tell you, some people, Aaron is too hard. Some is Yuvamis, somebody's, it's who knows what, mathematics, Kiddush Levana, I don't know what, Kiddush Chodesh, I mean, every person has, let me learn something else. Maybe, with this Arizal, that the parts of the Torah that you find most difficult learning, maybe that is your chelik that you're missing. So instead of looking the easy way, he says, what do I have so much to learn? What do I got to learn? What I don't like to learn? Maybe what you don't like to learn might be that chelik that really belongs to you. Anyways, that's a very interesting thing that we come down here to make up for the mitzvahs or the Torah that we missed out last time. However, I must tell you, there's another secret which is very interesting that besides mitzvahs that we're here on this world, sometimes we come down on this world for something, let's say, to help another Jew. The Baal Shem Tov, you ready for this? The Baal Shem Tov says that it's possible that a Jew could come down on this world for 70, 80 years, and his whole purpose was to help another Jew one time. It's worth it, and that is why he was here on this world, to one time help another Jew, either physically or spiritually. Every Jew has missions. I don't want to go into this now, I don't even know what time it is, but there's a very famous story that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote, that in the time of the first Chabad Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya VaShulchan Aruch, once a great Chassid, who was a very great Rav, very respectable Rav of a very famous town. And he went into this, his name was Rabbi Yosef Beshenkov of a certain city called Beshenkov. And he was with a long white beard, a very honorable person, big Talmud Chacham. And he goes into the Alter Rebbe to a private audience. It's called Yechidus. And the Alter Rebbe tells this Rav, major Rav, for the benefit of your neshama, you should become a balagala. A balagala meant like a taxi driver. In those days it was, with a wagon, a horse and buggy. And who did that? These were the people, the simple people. He couldn't believe what he's hearing. He's the Rav of like a city like Chicago, right? He's like the chief rabbi of Chicago. And the Alter Rebbe tells him, "L'toivas nishmascha," for benefit of your soul. I'm not telling you for somebody else's soul. For the benefit of your soul, you should be a balagala.
Maybe for one day?
No, he didn't tell him no one day. Anyways, I'm going to cut the story because it's going to take too long. Bottom line is, first of all, he came home, he was totally devastated, he couldn't believe what he heard. He told us his wife said, you're devastated? You should be so happy, now you know what you're here for. We're walking around, we like to know what we're here for. She made him look like a fool, she's a greater Hasidus than it. He says, the Rebbe tells you that this is for your soul, you're sad? Anyways, she got him to... You have to understand the picture of this. In the olden days, if a Rav would do something like that, for sure they would think he cracked. You understand? He had to skip town. Because if he would be a coach driver walking around there, they would say, Nebuch, the rabbi, he's over bottle. So Nebuch, this Rav, listen to the story. This Rav had to go to another city. He skipped town. And he had to learn the whole the geschäft, how you schmeiß the horse and how you go. In the Bekitzer, he broke his foot and till he learned how to the balacha, and he became a balagala. He couldn't understand, but the Alter Rebbe said this is his. Anyways, you got to hear the story. Anyways, years go by, and one day somebody who looked like a non-Jewish person, or a graf, he was very dressed up, like very special, and he hires him that he needs to go to a faraway place. Would you take me there? I'm sure he told him he's going to pay him, whatever. Okay, so he took him. Anyways, the story was that this graf was not a graf, he was a Yid, who was once a Frumme Yid, and was married and had children, and something happened, and he befriended the Goyim, and he became a whole Knaka, and became very wealthy, and he dropped his wife and children, and married a Shiksa, and had children with the Goyite, and left his whole family, and he became totally uninterested in Judaism. Anyway, this Rabbi Yosef doesn't know anybody, he just looks at the guy, he looks like a guy, And he takes him, and he stops off at a motel, because you don't drive in the middle of the night, and it's a faraway place. Gotta make it quick? Okay, so I'll make it quick. I don't even know what time it is. The bottom line is, this year, Rabbi Yosef was minding his own business. He was davening Ma'ariv, like a chassid, few hours in one room, davening ba'arichas. In the meantime, he's thinking to himself, what did I do with my life? Look at me, I'm a Galadol, takes me, what is going on? And he's crying his heart out. In the meantime, this Yid, who is really a Yid, got so taken, so moved from the davening of Rabbi Yosef, and he reminded himself, Gewalt, what happened to me and my soul. Bottom line is, he went into Rabbi Yosef and says, I have to do tshuva. Anyways, the stuff was that Rabbi Yosef was Mekarev, this guy. And the Alter Rebbe already went to heaven. And who was the next Rebbe? The son of the Alter Rebbe. So he took this Yid, Rabbi Yosef Balagola, took that Yid to the Mittler Rebbe, the son of the Alter Rebbe, to be Mekarev, Mittler Rebbe, the son, Rabbi Dov Ber, and he was Mekarev this Balagola. I mean, this man thing.
Yeah.
And he wrote, you hear, he wrote a whole sefer. And the sefer is available today in English and in Yiddish and in Hebrew. A sefer, a derech, how to do tshuva. Day by day, everything how about tshuva has to live his life after doing whatever he did. And one year, I don't know how many months later, Rabbi Yosef went into the Mittler Rebbe, also for a private audience, and the Mittler Rebbe said, my father came to me and said, mission accomplished. You can go back and go back to be a Rav.
Sell the medallion. You can sell the medallion.
So what's the pshat? So what is this? This unbelievable story that the Alter Rebbe saw that the person who he is going to be Mekarev, that's why he came down. He didn't come down to be a Rav. That's like a side thing. Hashem sent him down. This guy you have to be Mekarev. But the Alter Rebbe didn't spell it out. He told him, be a Balagola. The Alter Rebbe knew that this is what's going to happen. He's going to take a hitch and he's going to... So what do you learn from this story? That we don't even know. One of the reasons Hasidim used to go to a Rebbe was not just for, if you have a problem, I need a bracha. The main reason they went to a Rebbe is the Rebbe should tell them, what is my mission, why I came down on this world. So I'm just bringing back to the idea of reincarnation, that we don't even realize that besides we have to do every mitzvah that Hashem says, and there's no question, whatever it is, that's what we have to do. We have to know that every Yid has a specific purpose, what he needs to do on this world. And if he doesn't do that, he'll have to bounce back again, because that was his mission.
How do you know our mission?
So I said to you, if you have a Rebbe, the Rebbe will tell you. If you don't have a Rebbe, I guess what you really don't like to do, there's a very good chance that's your mission. Do you really don't want to be that? But the whole purpose of the cab driver was not to get a tip. It was that the cab driver was gonna, that's how he was gonna be Mekarev, that as a Yid.
He didn't know that.
No, but the Alter Rebbe knew that. He came down that he needs to be Mekarev this person. So this is a beautiful story in the idea of reincarnation. Is there any questions? I don't know what time it is.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
On the first part of the shir, there's a medrash that I once heard that says if Adam had enjoyed the taste of the
Eitz Hadas.
Eitz Hadas
Yeah.
as much as the Das, he wouldn't have been kicked out of Gan Eden. It wouldn't have been a sin. If he enjoyed the taste of the fruit as much as he enjoyed the das from the fruit, it would have been okay.
Where does that say?
I once heard it as a medrash. I don't know what.
I never heard
But
that.
that's consistent with what you said about the physical benefits. He would have had das elyon in a good way. In other words, in a way that offset the knowledge of good and evil. He would have had.
I don't know where this says, and I don't know. I never heard
Rebbe,
this.
I think I heard it from Shlomo Carlebach quoting one of his Rebbes. You know, could have been the Ishbitzer or one of those Rabbi Nachman. One of those Rebbes said something like that.
I can't answer. I don't know.
What was the name of the book?
What?
What is the name of the book?
Which book?
Book that he wrote on Shuvah.
Pokeach Ivrim, and they might have it downstairs. I don't know. The name of the book is Pokeach Ivrim. Yeah. Yes.
The eyes of the blind.
The first mention of Gilgalim is where?
Ramban.
The Ramban.
In Nidle the Torah.
Because
But the Arizal is full of it.
I see. Because there's I think it's a medrash that says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he didn't go into Eretz Yisrael, he asked to come back as like a bird or something. That he would come back, he would then go into Eretz Yisrael as a bird.
And that's a Midrash?
I think it's a medrash or it's something else. So that's you know about this?
No. I never heard that. But if it says, then it says. Huh?
That's what he's saying. That's in Midrash about Parashat episode of Bracha.
Really?
Because he was denied.
That he asked that he should become a bird?
Yeah, because he was denied entry, so if he couldn't go back this way, he tried to go back in different ways. He asked not to go back as a leader, that he would go in just as a regular person, and then if he couldn't go in as a regular person, he would go in even as a bird.
Okay, then it's not like what the Gemara says. The Gemara says because he wanted to be Mekayim the mitzvahs that are in Eretz Yisrael. So maybe there's a few opinions, but I'm saying in the Gemara Gemara says that he wanted to eat the good fruit in Eretz Yisrael. No, but then he really wanted to be Mekayim the mitzvahs that you can't be Mekayim unless you're in Eretz Yisrael. It's the Gemara in sight, yeah?
My question is that the Shlomo Melech had all these mashalim. Was there anyone who, whatever was his top mashal, that understood him? Why did he start with this highest one?
No, he was on the highest. Let me get it. He was 3,000 levels above the average people.
Okay.
He had to lower his seichel 3,000 steps.
Right. So
So who says that there was? It doesn't mean that there were any. Apipatris, it means that no one understood his level.
Right.
But he was so great that he could bring it down to the average person who was 3,000 levels lower.
So, but no, if nobody understood that 3,000th level,
I don't know.
maybe
I don't know.
somebody
It
can
doesn't.
understand the 2,500th level, and his whole godless was that people should understand him. Then maybe he should have right away gone to that lowest level.
You can't.
And then go up.
Because if you don't go gradually, then you lose the whole point.
So now my question is, if that's the case, without the 3,000th level, he couldn't explain the zero, the
Right.
one level?
Right. Because
in his mental capacity?
only if you are very great, you can lower it to such a low level.
So in his mental capacity, the only way he could bring it down to level 1 was first start in 3,000.
That's the level where he was. He was 3,000 times greater than the average smart person. So
when
what
it
did he
comes
have to
that,
do?
Who brings it down? Somebody who was his level who knows that?
No, because
He said
You have to go down.
he
all you
was
have to do is
able
reflect
to,
backwards.
he was able to,
Transmitted it down.
I got a question.
Yeah.
When is the Balagula going home?
I don't know what time it is. That was a good question.
10 azayget.
10? Okay.
Then he's going to, after he takes
Yes.
what's his new job?
He knows his new job. Yeah.
You said that
That was a good one.
You like
that
that,
you
man?
should learn.
You like that?
Huh?
You said that you should learn what you don't want to learn. That's
No, you should learn everything,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
especially
especially okay.
what you don't like to learn.
Okay, but it also says Eino Dam Lomeid Ela Mashali Boch.
La'olam yilmaid. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn that.
No, but
What you like to learn,
is what you should make it with the ikar.
yeah,
That's
but on the other hand, I'm not saying that you should only learn what you don't like to
I
learn.
understand that.
You have to learn everything. And you have to learn more what you enjoy learning. But you should also know that what you really don't like to learn, chances are that that's more negaya to you. You might not enjoy it, but you gotta do it because the reason you don't like it might be the reason because that's most important. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
You put it into the frame of learning, but when the Arizal said that the challenge is to do something that you don't like, wasn't he referring to the Yetzer Hara, the thing that
Yeah.
he's referring to the Yetzer Hara?
The same idea.
You're putting it into
No, it's the same point. Who doesn't like to learn it? Your Yetzer Hara. If this is so important to you, who do you think is the one who's making you not like it?
Yeah.
That's the Yetzer Hara.
But I think what he was talking about was more like
Mitzvahs.
characteristic.
I'm telling you that this same holds for mitzvahs and for the chelek in Torah that belongs to you. That's special for you. I want to just say one more thing that is maybe going to be a very important point. Not only are we here to fulfill all of the mitzvahs, like a bingo card, right? You need to cover every number. There's another whole secret. How many days and years we are given is how many times does our soul need to repeat the same mitzvah?
What? Repeat?
Repeat the same mitzvah. Let's say, I put on tefillin 50 days already. If I live more than 50 days, I live the 51st day, it means that my soul needed that 51 times the tefillin. So that means that we have to say to ourselves, as many days as Hashem gives us, it's not only to do a mitzvah that I never did. It may very well, it's for sure also, how many times does my soul need to repeat the same mitzvah? You hear? Now with this we could understand an amazing statement in the Gemara Brachos. You ready? The Gemara in Brachos says something very difficult to understand. If a person missed one time the Shema, let's say the night or the morning, the Gemara says something, Ki'ilu loikara krishme miyamav. If you miss one krishme, it is as if you never learned krishme. What could be the explanation? I learned all my life krishme. One time I missed it, it's considered as if I never. So Hasidus says that's the point. not only did we come down on this world to fulfill all of the mitzvahs one time, is many days that God grants us to live. It means that's how many days Hashem wants us to repeat that mitzvah. So if I had to keep X amount of numbers and I didn't make that quota, then what's the difference if I made 99? No matter how, I didn't make the quota that my soul needed.
Like Spiris Omer. It's the same logic as why Spiris Omer is, you have to say it all to get the mitzvah. There was a machlokes about that, I think. With Spiris Omer. Whether you get the mitzvah.
Anyways, I guess you should be blessed, everyone. And we'll be in touch, Mitzvah Hashem.
If he didn't tell him to hurry up, he would have ended on time. He didn't tell him like it's here to hurry up ever.